Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important topic. Today we'll be speaking about Egypt's presence in Africa, or rather Egypt's efforts exerted for the African continent. We'll be speaking about Egypt's reiteration, or the Egyptian leadership reiteration all the time of its commitment to pursue efforts in order to promote joint cooperation with the African countries in supporting the African causes, as well as exerting as much efforts in order to be able to fulfill the aspiration of the African nations. Definitely, Egypt has been working closely with regional and continental stakeholders and partners all together for the effort of promoting for Africa, particularly through the very hard time and harsh time the African continent is passing by, and the whole world is passing by because of the COVID-19 and more. However, Egypt has always been committed for the African Agenda 2063 that goes in parallel with Egypt's Sustainable Development Plans. We'll be speaking about that in our episode tonight. Before we delve into our discussion, first let's have the top story of the day. And on the occasion of the World International Women's Day, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi paid his respect to the Egyptian women, calling her the conscience of this nation. The president tweeted, or rather in a tweet, the president stated that he pays respect to the Egyptian women who carry the conscience of this nation upon her shoulders. He added that women are the spring and source of inexhaustible benevolence and goodness, and the power of safety and sacrifice that is renewed over time, as she is the first and primary source of wisdom and principles, and the basic foundation for building the family and its cohesion. His Excellency the President stated that Egyptian women diligently carry the conscience of the homeland in a way that corresponds with their eternal historical status. And on her part, the First Lady Intisar al-Sisi greeted Egyptian women on the occasion of the World's Women's Day. Egypt's First Lady wrote on her social media account that today we celebrate the Egyptian woman on the International Women's Day. This day reflects a journey full of giving, a journey that all women still continuing with the same spirit of enthusiasm and sincere determination despite all the challenges and difficulties. Intisar al-Sisi offered a pride and appreciation greetings to women, saying all greetings and pride and appreciation to every Egyptian woman who confirmed with her work, production, patience and sacrifices that this country derives from her conscience, strength and glory. Right, moving on to our topic of the day. In Egypt's Swan Forum for Sustainable Peace and Development closed successfully. Let's watch the report.
Respect women. Let's celebrate Women's Day.
The Foreign Ministry announced that the second edition of the Aswan Forum for Sustainable Peace and Development, which kicked off on March 1st, closed on the 5th of March. Congolese President and current Chairman of the African Union, Felix Tshisekedi, delivered a speech during the closing session of the forum, in which he expressed his appreciation for President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for his keenness on holding the forum and offering an opportunity for discussing means to overcome the coronavirus pandemic, as well as efforts to consolidate sustainable peace and development in Africa. Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri also delivered a speech on the last day of the forum, saying that although the conference is held via video conference, it received great attention at the highest levels. This affirms that the African countries and partners are convinced of the importance of the effective participation in the forum, which he said acts as a high-level platform that enhances joint African action, as well as cooperation with international parties. The foreign minister stated Egypt has sought to continue work beyond its AU presidency in cooperation with African leaders to overcome challenges facing the continent to build a better future for their people. Shukri said that Egypt has full confidence in the ability of the African states and peoples to overcome the current crisis, thanking all partners who offered support to this edition of the forum. Meanwhile, the executive director of the forum and director general of the Cairo International Center for Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peace Building reviewed the forum's conclusions, which are focusing on efforts to address the health, social and economic impact of the pandemic, noting that these conclusions will be translated into specific activities to help strengthen the capacity of African countries to deal with new threats. A large number of African leaders delivered video messages during the forum. The remarks made by the African leaders reflected their great appreciation for President Sisi and Egypt's keenness to promote cooperation among African countries.
Right. Welcome back and to our topic in Egypt's efforts in Africa in all domains. And let me welcome our guest, Ambassador Ahmed Khattab, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
And let me here start with the theme of the Aswan Forum, since we've just seen a report on it, and it was Shaping Africa's New Normal, Recovering Stronger, Rebuilding Better. It's a big slogan, it's a big theme, and it implies a little bit what Egypt has been doing for Africa. How did you read the theme?
Egypt is doing a great job to Africa since the revolution of '52. We believe that we are the big sister of all the African countries. So let me just give you a strange example. If you are a big sister and you are crossing the road and you have your little sister with you, would you take her hand with you or you leave her cross the road alone?
Families do get to
Definitely you will take her hand to help and assist her. So this is the attitude, this is the issue of Egypt. We believe that we were a strong state since thousands of years, and our brothers in Africa have just got their independence, and they need the experience, the power of a big sister like Egypt. But we do this without any benefits directly. We believe in ourselves that this is our role and this is our duty to the African family as a whole. So let me translate this to a specific points. Egypt is the only African country has an embassy in every African capital. Every African capital. So if we know that Egypt is the second greatest economy in Africa after South Africa, but South Africa have not more than 15 or 20 embassies in Africa. Secondly, Egypt is the only country which has a foundation to help the African countries, brothers and sisters. So this fund is supplying every country with the needs of this country. So definitely we are giving some priorities to the Nile Basin countries. This is normal. But I was, for instance, the first counselor of the Egyptian embassy in Rwanda. Rwanda, we have like 35 doctors working on the hospitals, on the villages, on the towns, on the cities, major cities of Rwanda, helping the Rwandan people for better life. So all this, what I mean, all this, that tickets, salaries, vacancies are on the charge of the Egyptian government. We don't ask Africa any penny to cover these expenses. So this is coming from our duty, our belief that we have to take these countries to better life since that was our role on the area.
And at the same time, we believe it's our destiny. I mean, it's our destiny to be all together.
Absolutely.
So we live
absolutely.
together. We have to
we
support each other.
we share a destiny, and we believe that better life for them is better life for us as well. So we have to give them the experience, the needs. The major project ever in Africa is issued by Egypt, by Egyptian president, the road from Cairo to Cape Town. This is the translation, the real translation of how Egypt look to the continent. We have the excellent roads in Egypt covering almost everywhere, but when we think that a road starting from Alexandria, reaching Cape Town,
South Africa, yes.
this is the issue. This is the issue that Egypt is looking forward to: better transportation, better movement of people and goods through the continent. So this is the issue. I mean, nobody, no government, no president have ever thought to create such a giant project which will cost billions and billions, but Egypt believes that it is possible, and we are doing this in steps. That's true, because such a giant project cannot be realized in 1 or 2 years. Even it takes 20 years, but the future is there.
Let go, of course, that Egypt is one of the founding members of the African Union, or the
It goes
Union
without
of
saying.
African Unity, as it was, and it is one of the biggest contributors to the forces of the African Union.
Up till now.
Up till this minute, yes,
Up till
of
this
course.
minute, yeah.
So definitely.
And we never complained. We asked the others to share a little bit, but we never complained that we are suffering from being far behind the second contributor on the African Union.
Yes, indeed. Returning back to the Aswan Forum, and in his speech, the president stressed that, driven by its faith, as he said respectively here, Egypt believes that the present time is optimum to discuss together the daunting challenges facing Africa, to seek the best ways and mechanisms to shore up the Africans' common efforts to get over the pandemic and rebuild better to take the African continent to safety. But we're not just speaking about the pandemic, because the pandemic is one issue.
One of the issues, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it has also been...
However, Egypt is playing a major role in that issue. I mean...
Yes. We're speaking about both issues. Peace building from one side, and at the same time, one of the daunting challenges facing Africa now is the coronavirus, definitely. And
yes.
The pandemics.
Yes.
So how do you view how Egypt has been giving in both sides, starting with the pandemic?
First of all, the idea of that forum is to get together.
Yes.
When you have more than 1,000 African experts, promising directors or gentlemen and women, of course, what do you mean by that? 3 days or 4 days sitting together, exchanging ideas, having known the problems of the others. So that creates an atmosphere of cooperation which never existed before. So a gentleman or expert or manager or whatever you name it, from Namibia, coming to Egypt for the first time, he sees on the spot in Aswan what's the concept of getting together, exchanging the idea, exposing his country problem, and getting ideas to solve this problem together. This is the idea of the meeting as a big forum to know each other, and for the next coming 10 years, those people will be the leaders of their countries. So this is number one. Number two, what we need. What we need, we have to express ourselves. I mean, as we started our talking, we need a transportation to be better in Africa. So Egypt is using their excellent contact with the worldwide United Nations, Special Organization, World Bank to finance, because this is the only problem facing Africa, how to get this project in reality. So getting together, finding the project, the giant Egyptian companies like Arab contractors can realize a part of that project. People will feel it in a certain time. Then they will be convinced to continue the road, the way which we started on the beginning. People now are not really convinced that it can be done, because of the problems of bureaucracy, the borders in Africa, the difficulty of getting roads through the mountains. But all this can be through the time, through the meetings, through the experts solving this problem, and finally we'll get it done. It can be.
And okay, before we go to the coronavirus and what Egypt, but speaking about what you've been saying, the source of financing, and Egypt has been working on that, especially with different
institutions and international banking system.
Yes, indeed, and different conferences that were held in that regard. And yes, especially when we speak about how Egypt is supporting and is promoting and propagating for Africa, we have to speak about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that was signed during the presidency of Egypt to the African Union. Despite the pandemic, but however, how do you view such a trade agreement and its effect?
Frankly speaking, I consider this is the biggest achievement of President Sisi during his presidency to the African Union last year. He made an incredible effort to convince his colleagues, the leaders of the African continent, that this is for the welfare and for the good sake of African continent in the near future. And with that magnificent effort done by the president, we managed to get the minimum number of the African countries to ratify the agreement, which is now on reality. So this is the phase. You don't know the bureaucracy in Africa and getting the things done among the governments. It's horrible. But we've been pressuring and making contacts, and our embassies in the capitals were following the matter till we get it done. So finally now we move to phase 2, as you mentioned, how to realize this agreement to the reality, to make
into effect.
Absolutely.
From your point of view, Egypt has been working in parallel with the African Agenda of Sustainable Development, and hence came the role of Egypt for propagating Africa in the whole world. And Egypt has been working closely with all partners worldwide. How do you see Egypt's efforts in trying to propagate Africa in the proper way, not just during its presidency to the African Union, but also before and after?
How many meetings President Sisi done last year with the international bodies? He been to China, to Japan, to London, to New York, of course. All this was not for the sake of Egypt. He was doing such an effort to convince. The problem was the international bodies vis-a-vis Africa is what? Is the bureaucracy and corruption. So this is the obstacle which prevent the international bodies to finance giant projects in Africa. And that's what Egypt is trying now to do through the contacts with the international bodies, that this finance will go directly to the projects, not to the buckets of officials or governments or whatever, you name it. But this consortium will do the job according to the standards of the international bodies, to realize a project which will have horrible impact on the continent after a while.
Please.
The contact is made basically by Egypt. Yes. I mean, President Sisi in every meeting insists that I'm not talking about Egypt. We are satisfied, we need your help, but I am aiming for the welfare, better future of the continent.
Of Africa at large.
Yes.
And hence the idea of, as you're speaking here about the problem of the foreign or the Western countries with the African continent, are those two aspects, then we remember two initiatives the leadership has been keen on. One is fighting corruption, yes, and the other is putting all the obstacles or hinders that could hinder any progress to the African continent.
Yeah.
Right. If I may ask you here about, we're speaking about the sustainable development of this continent. We've also been speaking about a daunting challenge that came just across like that, which was the pandemic. And we have been hard hit. The African continent has been hard hit. And the President spoke about that, in particularly about the vaccine and the share of the African continent of that. Please.
You got me. I was about to tell you that Egypt never asked for vaccines for Egypt. I mean, Egypt is always asking for fair treatment to the poor countries which cannot afford the high price of the vaccine on the Western side or in the other world, advanced world. I mean, in America, everybody pays for the vaccine, but they are capable. They are capable. Either they covered by medical insurance, or they are getting aid according to Biden program. So they are getting aid which can allow them to buy the vaccine. But what about a country like Chad, a country like Namibia? I mean, how can any normal citizen African can pay $300 or $400 to get the vaccine? So that's the issue here, that Egypt is moving to United Nations, basically, organization, to supply this country in equal footing of the advanced countries which they can afford. We succeeded in a part. China have promised Egypt to supply certain African countries with the vaccine. We're still working with the States. We're still working with Great Britain, with France, of course. France is already taking care of the Francophonic, which is normal. I mean, they believe that those are very linked to the French state. But okay, it's finally that we are aiming that the African citizen get a vaccine on equal footing like any European or any American. How can? This is what we are working on it.
Even though that we aspire for getting the share, because they are a free sovereign state that has to take its share upon the Charter of the United Nations, which speaks about free countries who should be treated equally, right?
My dear, any solutions has problems, and we have to deal with the problems. We cannot just give up. We cannot just give up. I mean,
Right. Returning back to what we are speaking about, and Egypt's support to various African countries to rise economic-wise, educational-wise, health challenges.
Yes.
Beside, of course, the COVID-19 issue. How do you view how Egypt supported Africa or has been into these causes, these African causes, through the past period?
Frankly speaking, it's very difficult. And Egypt alone cannot afford to face all these problems alone. So what we are asking now is a solidarity from the advanced countries, like South Africa, like Morocco, like Algeria, to have a kind of multilateral cooperation to face these problems. We cannot face all this alone.
But I remember
we are doing our
Yes.
best. I told you that we have this Egyptian Foundation which is doing a great job. But
yes, I remember that even before the COVID-19, the president launched the 100 million healthy life, and then he
Yes.
propagated that into Africa and said he would
Yes.
that Egypt is very much intending to cooperate with Africa in this domain in order to spread the idea.
when you are talking about 1 million, I mean, you hardly covered one country. I mean, in Chad, for instance, there are 9 million.
Now, those were the Egyptian 1 million.
No, I'm
then we
telling
were-
you, our efforts in Africa, we are willing to supply. We are willing to send doctors, admissions to the forests even. And I spend half of my life serving in Africa.
Yes.
I worked in Sudan, I worked in Rwanda, I worked in Central African Republic, and then ambassador in Gabon. And I know how misery some countries are suffering and facing, especially Central African Republic, for instance. Unbelievable, unbelievable. So when you send a mission with like 25 doctors, it's a miracle for them. But can you cover 45 countries in Africa?
No, definitely not alone.
So that's what my message to you was. I mean, we have to get a solidarity, cooperation above reasons. You know, some countries, I don't like to mention names, but they working in their angle, in their interest. They helping countries which are biased. Egypt is doing all this above reasons. Above reasons. We don't need anything from Windhoek, from Namibia, for instance. But you are treating Namibia as an equal footing. I just mentioned to you on the beginning of our nice conversation that we give a special attention to the Nile basin countries, which is normal. Nile is life for us. So we have to take care about those countries and those neighbors, especially our neighbors. So
We'll be getting to this issue, this very particular issue, and we'll be speaking also about the latest visit by President Sisi to Sudan. Before we continue on with our discussion, let's have this second report. And Foreign Minister discussed Libyan crisis with the UN envoy, and we'll come back for more discussion.